Aloha kako. On behalf of the University of Hawaii at Hilo and the Chancellor's Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, welcome and mahalo for joining us for the webinar with visual artist Lamerol A. Gatewood. Gatewood and I met in 1978 or 79. We had a shared love of jazz, Miles, Monk, Coltrane, and the creative space in St. Louis that had been established by African-American artists and performers in association with BAG, the Black Artists Group. When I left St. Louis in the fall of 1984 for Hilo, I gave Gatewood and my younger brother the keys to my loft studio. I thought at that time that I would be returning home every summer, but fate had other plans. The end of my first year of teaching at UHH, I did in fact return to assess and mourn the loss of the great 15,000 square foot Washington Avenue studio that I'd occupied since 1977. We moved on from that disappointment, Gatewood and I, by taking a road trip, summer of 1985, to New York City and Washington, DC, to check out the museums. And of course, all of the art supply stores around Canal Street. Gatewood was like a kid in a candy store. He bought a lot of brushes. A year later in 1986, Lamerol made the move to Brooklyn, New York. Today we celebrate his 2021 publication and welcome him to share his journey as a creative artist and curator of the Global Metaphysics exhibition series that supported the UH Hilo Black History Month calendar of events from 2018 to 2020. Aloha, Lamerol A. Gatewood. Mahalo once again for hanging out with us and supporting the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at UH Hilo. And hearty congratulations on the publication of your book.
Thank you, man, and thank Jenna and Kakai and the staff at the University of Hawaii in Hilo. Yes, we've had a tremendous history, you and myself, throughout the many years, and I'm glad after a considerable absence that we are now been able to do projects and meaningful projects for the community, both here on the mainland and in Hilo. It's been an honor to work with the university and your staff over the many few years. And I'm very grateful for that. It's given me a lot of opportunities to think forward and to continually be creative.
Appreciate you. Now in the book, you thank your paternal and maternal grandparents and parents for accepting your career choice of wanting to be an artist. Most kids don't experience unconditional support for their interests if it aligns with the arts. Do you feel that your health and wellness was connected to this early affirmation?
Well, you know, I have to thank my parents and my grandparents, which are showing on the screen now, which is the Owens side of the family, Levi Owens Sr. and Gusta Owens. My father basically asked me when I was, in my teens, what did I want to do with my life? And I said to him that I wanted to take an art class and I wanted to major in art. I wanted to be an artist. And with his approval, I didn't have, like some parents, African-American parents, they want their sons or daughters to be accountants, et cetera. But my father just said to me, as long as you stay in school and you have my support. And so I was very fortunate, and I didn't have that agony of some of my close friends that I know whose parents told them that they were not allowed to be in the visual arts, whether it's theater or as a fine artist, as I wanted to be. So in terms of my health, that I think that gave me a tremendous boost in terms of my psyche as a young person, because I had my parental support from all sides of my family. They supported me, and that's for me was a tremendous accomplishment to have that backing from my parents and
Absolutely.
family.
Absolutely. You also acknowledge in your book quilts, family heirlooms that also seem very much to be an influence on the constructed aspects of the works that you now produce. Is there a connection there?
It's coincidental that I'm showing Gusta Owen's quilt right now, and it's like these octagon shapes. And so I didn't realize that until I started putting and producing this book, that that's where some of this idea was coming from the circles. But the quilts from my grandparent, Gusta Owen's, it was total surprise. And as I started to do a number of Zooms or being a guest speaker, I began to realize probably this happened subconsciously. But a lot of it has to do with rhythm, music, and understanding what I want to do with my art and how to approach it visually, and my concept of an idea of music, which is a big influence. And when I look at my grandparents' work, I see rhythm, I see movement, the sense and scale of design. It's all there. So yes, that was a big influence.
So where did you pursue actually your higher university education, art education, and how did you support yourself before and after moving to Brooklyn, New York in 1986?
Oh, that's a lot of, I'll start. I went to Lindenwood University. At the time, it was called Lindenwood College. It was a small school. In its beginning, it was a finishing school for girls. And they, when I entered the school, they were asking men to come to the university, and they were giving full scholarships. And it was either because I was interested actually in going to Kansas City Art Institute. But at the time, Lindy was offering me a free ride for room and board. I had a part-time job on campus, et cetera. So it was a no-brainer when I thought about it. And I also was thinking about, how could I relieve my parents from having to pay this debt from the Kansas City Art Institute. So that was a no-brainer. So I did 4 years there at Lindenwood. I double majored in education and fine art. I was primarily focused on ceramics because I wanted to be a potter. I had met this African-American potter out of Wisconsin. And I thought I wanted to be a potter until actually I met you, and that kind of like changed my whole perspective. And so when I went to enter the graduate school at Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, I applied for the painting department. And that was partially because of our relationship and wanting to, and I felt comfortable in painting. So I decided to move in that direction: painting, printmaking, drawing.
Ceramics.
And ceramics, yeah. I never really, in undergrad, I didn't focus a lot on the drawing aspect or painting. I had figure drawing, et cetera, but it was primarily ceramics and pottery. But in grad school, I did a flip. I said, hey, I'm moving on to painting. And I'm actually glad that I did.
Right. And you did move on, rather dramatically from St. Louis, to Brooklyn, New York. That just seemed like it just happened like that. And so how did you think about supporting yourself on that move to New York back then?
Well, in St. Louis, before I actually met you, I worked for McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, and I was a tech illustrator. And that was a stepping stone until I decided to go to grad school. And so when I made the decision to move to New York, I said, oh my God, the rent's like astronomical and I need a real job. So, I realized I had an education degree, and I said I could get a job teaching art. And so in the New York school system. And so that's what I did. When we came up to New York, I literally applied for a position because I knew I was moving to New York very soon. And so I put that in play. And then when I made the move, I started subbing, and fortunately I met another African-American. I think he was a bank manager at Citibank, and he asked me, did I want to take a permanent position at Boys and Girls High School here in Bedford-Stuyvesant? I said, yeah, sure. So that started in 1986, how I started teaching here in New York.
Now, your professional experiences in those early years, I was looking at your CV. March 1987, you were included in an important show at Ken Kaliba titled Current Thinking, that was organized by Joe Overstreet and Corinne Jennings. Can you talk a little bit about that show?
Yes, that was my first group exhibition in New York. And I got that, I was, how do I say? I was invited to that exhibition through another good friend of ours, fellow St. Louis, and Quincy Troop, who had introduced me to Corinne and Joe Overstreet. And they had asked me to submit work for a group exhibition. And so, and I was accepted. I met a lot of young artists my age, and we were in my early 30s. I was about 32, 33 then. Mm-hmm. And so I met Terry Atkins, Lynette Carter, James Little, Nadine DeLawrence, who has since deceased. Actually, one of the first artists to invite me to his studio. He had just moved off 42nd Street, and he was at his studio on the meatpacking district on the west side of New York, off the West Side Highway. So that pushed me, and that gave me what I thought was relevance, and it got me out there to meet other artists, which I was dying to do at that time. You know, that was my whole idea of moving to New York, was to meet all these artists that, you know, particularly Al and some of the other generations a little older than I am.
Nice.
So that launched that career for me.
So that was all in New York City. All these things were happening. But like a decade later, again, sort of looking through your CV, you got included in a traveling group exhibition that opened in Europe, in Amsterdam. And then this show, it has a title, Other Bloods. Other Bloods, February 25th through March 26th in 1995. And then that same exhibition, or I think it was the same exhibition, or an exhibition of sort of shaped around that same concept, that was then picked up by Real Artways, the Real Artways organization, which is, I think, on the West Coast, Hartford, Connecticut.
Real Artways is in Hartford. That's on the East Coast.
I'm sorry, East Coast, Hartford, yeah. Connecticut. Right.
Yeah.
What was the focus of that show, Real Artways?
Terry Atkins and I think James Little were the curators of that exhibition. And I had met them what was that, 6, 7, 8, 9 years earlier. Okay. But I had become good friends with Terry and James Little and some of the other artists because we were networking we were talking quite a bit to one another. And I get a call from Terry asking me would I like to be in the exhibition Bloods. And Bloods, the title and what it means is that we were too young to go to Vietnam, or we did not get drafted. I do remember registering for the draft, but my number was not called. And so that's where Bloods came about, the idea. Anthony Morrell was in that show. Him and James Little are from the same hometown, Memphis, Tennessee. Sherman Fleming from Philadelphia. I didn't know him at the time. He was a performing artist. And of course, James Andrew Brown from Paterson, New Jersey, and Terry Atkins from here out of New York. So that's how that started. And so we did RT in Amsterdam, and that was an amazing time exhibition because we were invited 2 weeks guests of the state of the Netherlands. And so I had an opportunity to go to the Reich Museum, the Van Gogh Museum, and just traveling around. And my wife actually traveled with me, and I said, hey, we're going to Paris on the weekend. So we actually took a train to Paris, and that was my first time visiting Paris in 95, I think 1995. That was my actually first time going to Paris.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sherman Fleming's later was included in one of the shows that you curated for us at the East Hawaii Culture Center.
Well, I always admired Sherman and his approach to performance and his approach to being a two-dimensional artist. And so, and curating that exhibition in, I think it was 2018.
Yeah, that first one, yeah.
I wanted a different aspect, and I wanted a variety of artists, not just visual artists, but someone performance. Sherman had been performing for quite a long time, and I thought it would be a great platform for him to do a video, et cetera, of his performance, because he's very upfront about the political climate. Even now. So that's how Sherman became involved in that, because our association, and I've actually kept up with pretty much of all the artists except for maybe Anthony, because when Anthony didn't come back, he stayed in the Netherlands. But James Little, I hear, is very much so in touch with him.
Yeah, I think it would be great at some point in the future when we are able to pick this series back up that we include that performative aspect, because the relationship between art and performance, I think, should always remain close.
I've been thinking about that, and I'm trying to think who else. I think Gregory Coates was in that exhibition.
Gregory Coates was in that show. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. He's a very challenging artist, and I met him many years ago. I can't, probably in the mid to late 90s, maybe somewhere around there. And so I've gotten to know him and his wife Kiki quite well. Yeah.
Now, in 1995, you received a grant from the Joan Mitchell Foundation. How important was that to your work and to your practice?
Well, I need to kind of elaborate a little bit on that. I was in the stable of Ben Wigfall, the Watermark Cargo Gallery out of Kingston, New York, and I had a group show, a two-person show, and a solo exhibition with the Watermark Cargo Gallery. And somewhere in there, I get a notice or a mail in the mail that I had been accepted to the Joan Mitchell. I had received this award, and that was the second year that they had came out with that award. And I'm like, wow, how did I get this award? And, and is it a joke? Because, they give you this money, and at the time it was quite a handsome sum. So I'm talking to Ben, and Ben said, well, you can't tell anybody, but I submitted your name to the Joan Mitchell Foundation because they had asked him. And Ben is no longer with us. But thinking about it, I was like, he's got a lot of people in his stable, and he chose me. I mean, so I must have made a really profound impression on Ben, because I would talk to Ben all the time about art, even, because he was like a mentor actually to me. And so we became very close. Talk about him, talk about the business of art, and how to manipulate and how to create work and how to do business in the art world. So he was a very significant person in my life. And not too long ago, I did another webinar and on Ben Wig before, because they were going through his archives up in Kingston. And so I said, oh, absolutely. And I think the James Madison, I can't remember the name of the gallery, but it just closed. And Ben was also, we had a group exhibition just recently in 2021, November to December in 2021 at the James Madison University in Virginia.
Now, Ron Ollie, he's a major collector of African-American art. He began to acquire your work in the late 1990s. And I think in 2019, the St. Louis Art Museum was given an opportunity to select work from Ollie's collection for the museum's permanent collection. Your work held up to the scrutiny of a double elimination. How cool was that, Ben?
That started happening, I believe it started happening a little earlier than that, probably around 2017.
When Ollie started collecting your work?
No, when the St. Louis Art Museum came to his space,
Okay.
because he had started to think about where he wanted to park his archives, and we have to mention Ron Ollie is from St. Louis, and his wife Monique is from Ohio. So I met Ron probably at June Kelly in the 90s sometime, and our relationship grew out of that. He had come over to the studio a couple of times, but and I was wondering when Ron was going to actually purchase a painting, and actually he did purchase a painting. And so fast forward, he's getting his archives together, and he made the decision to park them at the St. Louis Art Museum. And he called me and said, the museum selected your painting, because I had asked him, did you give them the painting? He said, no, they selected the painting. So that has actually started my a fruitful relationship with the St. Louis Art Museum since about 2018. And so that's how that came about. And so the reception was September of 2019. And I'm at this reception and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's curators from all over the country, there's collectors all over the country. And it clicked that I needed to start my book, because I had been thinking about creating this book since 2017, but I never moved on it. And then after I saw Ron's book, how he created his book and dedicated it to his parents, so it was a no-brainer again. And so that's when I started asking curators, would they be interested in doing an essay for my book? And I just had to figure out how to put it together. And that's another aspect of the book. But that's when it really actually started. I made it to put it in play at that reception at the St. Louis Art Museum. And I'm giving kudos to Monique and Ron for having me involved in their family and the St. Louis Art Museum. That was a big deal to me because I had been wanting to be in the St. Louis Art Museum. I think you were in the museum also with Oliver Jackson. I know Oliver's there. So I think you lost. I don't hear you. Your mic is muted.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. There's someone weed eating outside my classroom, and I muted so that it wouldn't interrupt. But yeah, I'm in the collection, but I came in, I think, through a Currents exhibition series that was held many years ago.
Right.
Yeah. There was a question that came up in the chat. I think actually would be maybe good to jump into right now. And it has to do about your, how you transition from, I think, cloth to print, or I think it says, Lamerol, how did you make the transition from cloth to print? We still display some of your early paint pieces from St. Louis on display in our Texas place.
If I understand it right, how did I transition from canvas to paper? Is that?
I think that's what's meant. Yeah.
Well, I'm for a long time. I've been working on canvas, but canvas was not giving me in my later years. It wasn't giving me something, and so I made that trend. But I've always worked in paper, so I made that transition to exclusively work in paper. But that doesn't mean that sometime in the near future I'll go back to canvas. It's just the works that I'm working on now, they're more flexible with canvas. With paper, and so I've decided, in the last 10, 15 years, I've been exclusively working with paper. I don't mind telling everybody I'm working with Stonehenge, and I buy it by the roll. It's like 50 inches wide and probably 150 feet long. It comes in a huge bulk, so that I can make paintings large, small, and I just tear what I need or cut what I need to create the new body of works. But the paintings have evolved where I'm creating individual paintings, or I create individual drawings, different mediums, pastel, oil pastel, charcoal, or acrylic, and I'm using iridescent colors. So each one of those mediums is a different painting. And then for the Karen Energy series and the Abstract Energy of Sound series, I created these panels, and if you look at this painting that's on the screen now, each one of these forms are individual panels, which can be anywhere between 20 by 30, 30 by 40, 40 by 50 in scale. And then I actually start cutting them down to make what we're seeing on the screen now, or in back.
Yeah, that's one of the things actually that's difficult to see when you're looking at reproductions in a format like this, or even in a book sometimes, because everything is reduced to the same size. But when you present it in the Global Metaphysics show, what was really apparent was that your work varies dramatically in scale, sometimes quite small, but sometimes quite large. I think the next slide will provide some context for that. You see, this was one of the large pieces in your show with plate Namamiya.
Right. This painting is probably 110 vertically by 126 wide. It's a challenge to work on that scale. I have to have an assistant, my goddaughter Kimberly, who comes over and helps me to move these paintings around because they're paper, and so they get fragile and they'll tear very easily. So I enjoy creating paintings at that scale, but I'm not limited to just painting large. I'm kind of all over the place in terms of the scale that I'll do a 9x9 or a 5x7. It's just as challenging as a larger painting, 10 by 126. It's just as challenging. I have more to say when I create larger paintings, but smaller paintings, I think probably are a little more challenging because you have to like narrow your focus, and less is more is my concept and idea of how to approach that smaller scale.
Responding to a question in the chat, there was a question about let's see, where did it go? What's been the most difficult part of your art journey, and how have you overcome that barrier? This is the answer to that might help some young artists, coming up.
Well, I think as a young person, speaking for me, I made a decision early on that I double majored because I from listening to older artists in St. Louis, how are you going to support yourself? I can't depend on my parents. I'm 22, 24 years old. I need a job. And so I've been fortunate to have different jobs and 3 or 4 jobs, whatever it takes to be successful and to be a creative person. When you're young, you have that energy. And so I had 2 or 3 jobs. In grad school, I threw papers, graveyard shift in order to be a full-time student during the day. I worked part-time as a professional framer, after I left McDonnell Douglas. And so that provided income. And I also figured out, and I was selling art in St. Louis. I had a check cashing machine for MasterCard Visa. So I would have these shows once a month in private homes. People were giving me private exhibitions in their homes, and I was selling art. So individuals have to kind of like figure out what's best for me and what's going to work for me. I'm just kind of like giving you examples of how I was able to manage and produce art at the same time, because that was the objective. How to stay creative, but yet how to maintain a standard of living, and because you got to eat and you got to buy materials. So it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. So that was my biggest challenge. I think was trying to figure it out. But I think for young people, you need to talk to other artists and listen to what they're saying, how they have figured it out. That's most important.
Now your 2021 publication, hardcover. Well, actually, I said it was a hardcover, but it's hardcover, softcover, softcover.
It's a hardcover.
It is hardcover.
It's a hardcover.
Right.
Yes.
Your hardcover publication. It's soon going to be available in the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts bookstore. And of course, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts is one of the major art training grounds, art institutions in the country. It really kind of completes a major circle of accomplishment. What do you see as the next chapter in your practice?
Well, basically, right now I'm really trying to get the book out there. I'm thankful for the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art in Philadelphia. The book is in the bookstore right now. They're actually going to carry postcards and fine art prints that are produced by 1,000 museums in Seattle, Washington. Let me back up. And all this is taking place because of the St. Louis Art Museum. And I have to give Renee Franklin and Kelly Ryan Dr. Kelly Ryan, the librarian at the same, because they recommended Lucius Marquand, the printer, which is a subsidiary. The subsidiary of Lucius Marquand is IO Color, and so I was able to contact IO Color because of the contact with the St. Louis Art Museum, and I'm so grateful and thankful for them to guide me in that direction. The book is 160 pages. It has 48 color plates and 6 double fold outs. And my team, 360 Design out of Atlanta, Beverly Mattox, and Kimberly, my goddaughter, and another photographer, Marcia Wilson. And I want to thank the curators, Alexa Assam, who was recently just got a new position at the Virginia Museum of Fine Art in Richmond, and Jade Powers, she's at the Camper in Kansas City, and a good friend of ours, Jan Castro, is an independent curator here in New York, and she's from St. Louis, and that was the main reason that I asked her to do the interview, because she was from St. Louis.
Jan Castro, yeah, she's a
great writer.
She's a brilliant writer. I have a question that came in the chat about the piece that's up on the screen now.
Right.
Is it various mediums being used or just one type?
No, there's probably 5-6 different mediums. There's charcoal in the center where you see the black and white, that's charcoal. There's glitter in the bottom center where you see the yellow or mustard color with purple with a touch of green. There's probably like 7, 8, 9 layers of paint on that. It's acrylic, but there's like glitter and iridescent colors laid down first, and then the acrylic is to push everything back. There's also pastel, chalk pastel in this particular painting is collage as well. And so there's no oil in this painting. I kind of stopped using oil because it was taking too long to dry. But some of the earlier works have oil stick or oil in them, but not in this particular painting. So there are like 5 or 6 different mediums in this one painting, and this is from the abstract energy of sound from this body of work.
I have a question from someone that asks, do you create separate art that you keep personal and for yourself outside of work that you send out to exhibition?
There's quite a number of paintings that I haven't shown. I said, or when I create the panels, I said, I can't cut this one up. So I've actually, I have quite a few, and they're like 50 by 60. I said, nah, I just cannot cut this painting up. So that has actually happened this month. I was doing some drawings, and I said, I can't cut these drawings up. So I do save paintings personally for me. This one showing, I really don't want to give it up, but if the price is right, I will sell it because I actually love this particular painting. It just speaks to me. And then I have some earlier works that I did in 2020 that are figurative that I have not actually shown. And but I'm along with the abstract, I'm also doing figurative painting abstractly. But I've always done that. It's almost like Romare Bearden. A lot of people didn't know Bearden was doing abstract painting or designs along with his figurative work. So I kind of picked that idea up when I was learning about Bearden. So yes, I have a lot of paintings that I am not showing.
And so from another person, question is, would you say your work was greatly influenced by traveling as well as transitioning from Kansas City arts to New York? In other words, from Midwest to New York and travel, did that change your work?
Oh, absolutely. Years ago, when I was in your studio, and I had a studio in my apartment that I was staying in, I could work large at almost any scale. And when I made the transition from St. Louis to New York, I said, "Oh my God, the space is small." And so I started working on small paintings, 22 by 30, until I was able to get a larger space. So I had to make that adjustment. And that was one reason why I moved to New York, was it would force me to change my attitude about painting or just creating in general, because the space was much smaller here in New York versus in St. Louis, where we had, I think your space was 3,500 square feet. And then I had a studio in my attic in the apartment that I lived in. And so I had quite a bit of space. So yes, it does force you to change. It depends on your environment. And change is always good.
Yeah. Now there's another question that's come up. I would like to know what your most prized, personal, and meaningful piece of work. I mean, do you have a piece that stands out for you personally that way? It's like a benchmark piece for yourself.
Not really. Painting for me is the process and the challenge of accomplishment. And once that's done, I'm thinking about the next project or the next painting. As I indicated, this the one on the screen, I really like the painting, but I've been showing it. I had a book signing at the Dorsey Gallery January the 23rd. I actually showed this painting, but it was also on view at the Wilmer Jennings Gallery in New York City, November through December. But it's one of my favorites. But but that's okay. But no, I'm not just enthralled where I have to have one particular painting. And I may be contradicting myself, but it's not like that. It's more about the process of creating, and I'm doing a new body of work right now, and I'm excited about it. And so that's what's happening right now.
Right. Another question from the
Sure.
from the Q&A. I often struggle with pricing and appropriately valuing my own art, be it music or painting. So as far as protecting your intellectual property rights as an artist and defining your status as a legitimate artist, how do you go about doing this?
Well, in terms of pricing, when I was a younger artist, I had this, I met this accountant, and everybody in his family was artists except for him. And I asked him the same question: how do I price my work? And he said to me, whatever the market will bear. So if the market bears $5, then you sell it for $5. If the market bears 20,000, then you sell it for 20,000. It's simple. For me, that was quite simple. But I didn't understand that as a young person, as a young artist starting out. So he made that very clear to me. What was the latter part of that question?
That latter part of that question was, where did it go now?
Oh.
Had to do with protecting your intellectual property rights as an artist and defining your status as a legitimate artist.
Well, I think like artists, like writers, like everybody else, you need an attorney. You need someone to help you figure out how to copyright your work. If you turn one of these paintings that's showing now on the screen, if you turn on the back, it has a copyright sign on it. I've been fortunate that I actually married an attorney, my wife Diane, and so she's helped me with a lot of the legality of the art business. I also think I took a course in grad school called the Business of Law or something like that. And so it's important that artists take a business course so that you know how to manage your work, you know, because it's a business. You know, it's not like we're, you know, going back to the earlier part of that question. I'm not so attached to anything that I won't sell it. Everything has a price. You know, that's my attitude. You know, at what point and how much are you offering me, you know, to the collector for me to sell this painting? That's my objective. You know, so yes, for young artists coming up, take business classes because it's a business. It's, you know, you love it, but it's a business. I've had all kinds of experiences, positive, both negative, people trying to take your art because they know that they can make money from it. So you do have to protect yourself. And one way is getting a copyright and documenting your work. Learn how to shoot your own work. That's important. A lot of artists don't know how to shoot, use a camera to photograph their own work. Everything in this book, my goddaughter and I, we photograph ourselves. I control my own images. Nobody else controls my images. I've done that over the years. Even when I lived in St. Louis, I was shooting my own paintings. Any other questions?
I'm just looking now. I think there was another one that I missed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, someone's asked what type of business course?
You take a regular business course. You need to take accounting. You know, you need to take business management. How do you manage your work? I have so many paintings around here. I spent all of 20 reorganizing my studio in terms of being able to find paintings. I never thought that I would have so many paintings. And once you put paintings in storage, and if you're not organized, you can't find them. So how do you manage? You need a business managed course and you can apply it to art. How do you manage your artwork? How do you find your artwork when you have it rolled on a roller and it's not on a stretcher? Because I'm living in New York, I have limited space. So I roll everything or I keep flat files. And so I put things on sonotubes. I may have like 5 or 6 paintings on one sonotube. And I labeled it. That's what we did in 2020. We labeled all the paintings on those tubes so that when the Wilmer Jennings exhibition came up, I knew where those paintings were. I have a database. You see my artwork. It says Untitled number 20, 2020, 20 -007. That means that's the 7th painting of 2020. It's in my database. So if someone sees my painting, they can give me the database or they can give me the date and the year, and I can find it in my database because that's how I organize it on the computer.
Gatewood, I'm sorry, Gatewood, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have another question.
Sure.
That is asking about the work, the circles, you know, for example, you know, that are in your work. Does the circles represent things that are personal? You know, how do these circles tie into your working process?
Well, this body of work that we're looking at now on the screen is the abstract energy of sound, and it's influenced by music. It's influenced by the galaxies in space. If you look at them, you know, they're like planets circling around the sun. That's what these paintings are about. It's also about the circles are about the political atmosphere here in New York or throughout the United States or the world right now. I'm influenced by music. So you'll see where there are like little riffs going through the paintings or the drawings. There are like rest spots, which I get from musicians when they're playing their instruments, you know. So it's about sound, it's about space, it's about time. And it's also about, again, our political environment. That's what these paintings are about.
Okay, I know music early on was something that I mean, I mentioned that in the intro that we shared that whole bit with the avant-garde music that was coming out in jazz at the time. Hemphill, the World Saxophone Quartet, and beyond. So that's still very much a factor in your
more so now than in my earlier career when I was doing the figurative. With the works that are abstract, it's all about the musicians that we know personally from Bag, whether it's Lester Bowie or Hamlet Blewett or, you know, Oliver Lake, and I'll mention my good friend J.D. Perrin and Marty Ehrlich, who also lives here in Brooklyn. So it's all about my relationships with musicians. I have quite a number of musicians friends, and I'm very honored to have them as friends, and they're big influences on how I approach painting. The musicians and writers as well.
Okay.
You know, I know quite a few writers, and I like what they're saying or how they visualize their language. That's important.
All right, and I just wanted to circle back around to the theme of our Black History Month series this year on health and wellness. Any additional thoughts that you can share in terms of being engaged as you are as an artist, and also in the community of artists that you're connected with? You know, how art supports health and wellness.
Well, art is metaphysics for me. It keeps me in check. It keeps me viable. It brings joy to me when I see something coming to fruition. It's my lifeblood. I mean, it's like I hadn't painted in over a year because of the book. And I was like, God, man, I got to get back in the studio, man. I got to get back in the studio. And so I had to check myself and say, okay, well, you know, you're working on this project. It's a fabulous project. And you're going to have to wait on this painting, this idea of painting. And so just recently, last month in January, I started back painting, and that's been almost a year. So art gives me the vitality. It nourishes my psyche. It does everything. You know, it's almost like a sports figure. You know, they say I'm living for sports. Well, I live for the visual arts. I live for music, and so that gives me health and wellness.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think most people can, when they have something that they feel nurtures them. You know, you must really get to it. And
well, it's in your blood, and it's like it's something that you have to do, and you have to say it. And so visually, two-dimensionality gives me that visual language that I need to say, and I can say it through my art, politically, health-wise. If you look at my paintings, they're all about energy. You know, I'm when I'm depressed or I'm kind of down, I don't paint, because I don't want to show that in my paintings. I want to show exuberance. I want to show, you know, that the paintings are scintillating. You know, they're shining. You know, they're talking. They're saying something. So when you walk by the painting, and I hear people that know me, they give me, oh, Gatewood, this painting is just giving me so much energy. It's giving me so much joy. I can't stop looking at it. So that's that health and wellness that you get from other individuals who view your work.
All right. Do you have any anything else that you would like to share, especially for our students who may be in the audience here?
Well, my thing, I taught for 25, 30 years. And my thing to students is never give up your dream. It's all possible. Michael will attest, my dream was to move to New York to hang out with, in 1995, I met, at the Joan Mitchell Foundation, I met Jack Whitten. I did not know who Jack was at the time. I met Shakaya Booker, who I think did a workshop with the University of Hilo.
She did indeed.
And so that's my dream, was to be here in New York and to have the opportunity to meet all these fabulous, incredible painters, writers, musicians. So they're here in New York and they're in my neighborhood. And so, you know, we're speaking of Marty earlier. Later, Marty lives 3 blocks down. I can walk to his house in 5 minutes. So that's my inspiration. Never give up your dream. And if somebody tells you you can't do it, ignore the fact and do it anyway. So I've been fortunate to have that opportunity here in New York.
All right. Well, you know, Gatewood.
Yes, sir.
Mahalo nui loa for your sharing all of your mana'o with us, and looking forward, of course, to resuming our exhibition series in one way or another. You know, we're going to circle back around to that. The 3 exhibitions that we worked on from 2018 to 2020 that basically went into that disruption of the pandemic. I don't think that'll be the close of our chapter in collaborating together. And
I think we will do other projects in the future, but that all depends on COVID. And I'm looking forward to working with you and your staff in the near future. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on a Zoom webinar and promoting my book.
All right.
You can find my book on LA Gatewood, LamerolGatewood.com. I appreciate everybody.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Gatewood.
All right. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.